All right, let's dive into something kind of deep today.
That's fun.
We're going to be taking on absurdism.
Oh, cool.
But before you think we're about to go all doom and gloom,
Right.
let me tell you, absurdism is a lot more interesting than that.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about this clash between our human desire to find meaning in life and the universe just like not caring at all.
You got it.
Yeah.
That feeling, that disconnect, it's at the core of what Albert Camus called the absurd.
Okay.
It's not about a single event.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like this tension we feel.
I feel it.
When our need for a purpose like bumps up against the universe, it just doesn't seem to care.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
But can you help me wrap my head around the absurd
Sure.
a little more?
Yeah.
It's like a real world example.
Okay.
You know, sometimes these philosophical ideas can get a bit too abstract.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So imagine you've spent weeks planning this incredible trip.
Okay.
You've booked flights, found the perfect hotel, you've even mapped out every restaurant you want to try.
I've been there.
But then, bam, a massive volcano erupts and grounds all flights indefinitely.
Oh, no.
It's like, what was the point of all that planning?
I know.
Doesn't it make the whole endeavor feel kind of absurd?
Totally. You're left with this feeling of, well, now what?
Yeah.
It reminds me of that myth of Sisyphus.
Oh, yeah.
How does his story help us understand this concept of the absurd?
Sisyphus eternally pushing that boulder up a hill,
Yeah.
only to have it roll back down.
Yeah.
He's the poster child for human struggle against these pointless tasks.
Right.
But Camus, he had a really interesting take on Sisyphus.
Oh.
He suggests that Sisyphus can actually be a hero,
Okay.
not by conquering the task,
Uh-huh.
but by embracing it
Interesting.
and finding fulfillment within the struggle itself.
Hold on. Are
Yeah.
you saying we should all just accept these boulders in our lives
Yeah.
and like find a way to be happy about it?
Well, I mean,
Doesn't sound very empowering.
not quite. It's not about passive acceptance. It's about this sort of revolt. Absurdism is urging us to reject both nihilism,
Okay.
that whole life is meaningless, so why bother attitude,
Right.
and the temptation to escape into dogma or blind faith.
Interesting.
It's about acknowledging the absurdity of it all
Yeah.
and choosing to live fully in spite of it.
So if I'm hearing you right,
Yeah.
this idea of revolt is about like actively creating your own meaning, even when the universe doesn't seem to provide one.
Precisely.
Okay.
It's about taking ownership of your existence,
Yeah.
finding those moments of joy in the everyday,
Mm-hmm.
and living authentically, regardless of any grand cosmic plan.
That makes a lot of sense.
Cool.
But how does absurdism differ from other philosophies out there that
Yeah.
also deal with meaning and purpose?
Yeah.
Like, for example, what about existentialism?
Oh, yeah.
It seems like they might be tackling similar questions.
They do touch on similar themes,
Okay.
but there's a key difference.
Sure.
Existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre,
Yeah.
they believe we create meaning
Mm-hmm.
through our choices and actions.
Right.
Absurdism, though, it's more skeptical about our ability to create lasting meaning.
I'll see.
It acknowledges that any meaning we create is subjective
Okay.
and ultimately still set against the backdrop of a universe that doesn't offer inherent meaning.
Okay. That helps clear things up.
Good.
So existentialism is about actively building meaning,
Yes.
and absurdism is about accepting the lack of inherent meaning
Yeah,
and choosing to live fully anyway.
exactly.
But what about nihilism?
Oh, yeah. Good one.
Isn't that the nothing matters philosophy?
Where does that fit in?
You're right. Nihilism argues that life is fundamentally meaningless
Right.
and without purpose.
Okay.
But while absurdism acknowledges that lack of inherent meaning,
Yeah.
it doesn't lead to despair or apathy.
Okay.
Remember, it's about embracing life, even celebrating it, despite this apparent absurdity.
So let me get this straight.
Okay.
Absurdism says there's no inherent meaning in the universe.
Yes. Existentialism says we create meaning through our choices.
Yep.
And nihilism says, well, nothing really matters.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Got it.
Right.
Now that we've mapped out these different perspectives,
Yeah.
let's shift gears and explore how absurdism might actually show up in our everyday lives.
Okay.
Because, let's be honest,
Yeah.
most of us want to know how these big philosophical ideas connect to our own experiences.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's where Camus's focus on the richness of experiences comes in, you know?
Yeah.
Like, think about those moments that bring you joy
Right.
and fulfillment, love, art,
Uh-huh.
the beauty of nature. These things, they don't change the fundamental nature of the universe.
Right.
but they make life worth living, don't you think?
I see what you mean. It's like standing on a mountaintop, taking in a breathtaking view.
Exactly.
The mountains have existed for millions of years.
Right.
They'll be there long after we're gone.
Yep.
But that moment,
Yeah.
that experience of awe and wonder, that's something we can create and hold on to.
Exactly. And that's what absurdism encourages us to do.
Okay.
Find meaning in those moments, in those experiences, even if they're fleeting and ultimately insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
So would you say that absurdism is less about finding an answer to the big why of existence
I think
and more about saying yes to the experiences life throws at us?
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about embracing life on its own terms with all its contradictions and uncertainties.
But wouldn't some people say that finding joy in potentially meaningless tasks is just a form of self-deception?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
How would you respond to that criticism?
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
And it's a criticism that absurdism has faced.
Yeah.
But think about it this way. If there's no inherent meaning, then any meaning we find is by definition something we create. And isn't that empowering in a way?
I guess so.
We're not bound by some preordained purpose.
Right.
We have the freedom to define what matters to us.
So it's not about denying the absurd,
Right.
but about choosing how we respond to it.
Yeah.
It almost feels like a shift in perspective, a way of reframing how we view the world and our place in it.
It is. And that shift can be incredibly liberating.
Oh, wow.
It allows us to let go of the need for absolute certainty to embrace the ambiguity and uncertainty that are inherent in the human experience.
But if we accept that there might not be a grand plan, does that make our everyday choices and experiences more meaningful or less?
It does seem like a paradox.
Yeah, it does.
On the one hand, knowing that our actions might not have some ultimate cosmic significance could lead to a sense of meaninglessness. But on the other hand, it also frees us from the pressure of having to find the meaning of life.
Right.
We can focus on finding what gives our own individual lives meaning, right?
Right. So instead of being weighed down by this pressure, to find some grand purpose.
Exactly.
You can look inwards and find meaning in the way we choose to live our lives, moment by moment, whether that's through our relationships, our work, our creative pursuits, or simply by appreciating the beauty of a sunset.
Precisely. The meaning isn't inherent in the activity itself, but in the value we choose to assign to it.
You know, I'm starting to see how absurdism isn't about doom and gloom at all.
Oh, yeah.
In a way, it's quite optimistic. It's about finding those moments of joy and meaning amidst the chaos and uncertainty of life.
I think that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
It's not about pretending that the absurd doesn't exist,
Right.
but about recognizing it
Yeah.
and choosing to live fully and authentically anyway.
So it's both a philosophy and a call to action.
Yes.
It's not just about contemplating the meaninglessness of existence,
Right.
but about using that realization to
Right.
live a life that's rich with experience and personal meaning.
You've hit the nail on the head. And perhaps that's what Camus meant when he wrote, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy."
Wow.
You know, here's Sisyphus condemned to this eternal, meaningless task.
Yeah.
And yet Camus suggests that he finds a way to embrace his fate and find joy within it.
Wow.
That's the essence of absurdism, isn't it?
That's such a powerful image.
It is.
And it definitely leaves us with a lot to think about.
Indeed. And that's what's so fascinating about absurdism.
Yeah.
It doesn't provide easy answers,
Right.
but it encourages us to grapple with these big questions and find our own way of navigating the absurdity of existence.
Speaking of grappling with these ideas, what advice would you give to our listeners who are interested in exploring absurdism further? Where should they start?
Well, I always recommend going straight to the source.
Okay.
Camus' The Myth of Sisyphus.
Right.
It's a challenging read,
Yeah.
but incredibly rewarding. And don't worry, it's much shorter than eternally pushing a boulder up a hill.
I love that. And of course, there are tons of other great works out there that touch on absurdist themes. Plays like Waiting for Godot,
Yes.
novels like The Stranger,
Yeah.
even films like Groundhog Day and Fight Club explore these ideas in really engaging ways.
Absolutely. It's amazing to see how absurdism shows up in art,
Yeah.
literature, and even pop culture.
Right?
It just goes to show how relevant and thought-provoking these ideas remain.
So it's not just a philosophy confined to textbooks and lecture halls.
Exactly.
It's a living, breathing concept that continues to shape how we see the world and our place in it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And as we face new challenges and uncertainties in our own lives,
yeah,
perhaps absurdism can offer a framework for finding meaning and purpose, even when those things seem elusive.
It definitely gives us a new lens through which to view the world. As we wrap up our deep dive into absurdism, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
If we embrace the idea that there might not be a grand cosmic plan, does that make our everyday choices and experiences more meaningful or less?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And it's one that each of us has to answer for ourselves.
Yeah.
But as we ponder that question,
Okay.
I'll leave you with this quote from Camus. One must imagine Sisyphus happy.
Those are definitely words to live by.
They are.
And hey, if Sisyphus can find happiness in his absurd struggle, maybe we can too.
Maybe.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into absurdism, everyone. Keep those minds curious, and we'll catch you on our next adventure into the world of ideas.
Yeah, it really makes you think,
It does, and it's one of the most valuable takeaways from absurdism.
I think so.
It's not about, ignoring the hard questions or pretending that everything's perfect.
Right.
It's about acknowledging that inherent absurdity of existence and then, choosing to find meaning and joy within that context.
So what does that actually look like?
Oh, that's a great question.
In practice.
If you had to give our listeners one piece of advice on how to embrace the absurd, what would it be?
I think it boils down to being fully present in your life.
Okay.
Embrace the experiences, both big and small, that make you feel alive.
I like that.
It could be something as simple as savoring a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Or spending time with loved ones. Or something more challenging like pursuing a creative passion.
Yeah.
Or taking a stand for something you believe in.
I like that. It's about finding those moments of meaning and joy in the everyday.
Exactly.
Even when life feels kind of chaotic or uncertain.
Exactly. And remember, those moments don't have to be grand or earth-shattering.
Right.
They can be quiet and personal.
Right.
It's about finding what resonates with you.
Yeah.
What gives your life a sense of purpose.
Okay.
Even if that purpose is self-created.
It's almost like a permission slip.
Yeah.
To let go of the pressure to find some big universal meaning.
Totally.
And instead just focus on what makes you feel fulfilled.
That's a great way to put it. And it's a journey.
Yeah.
Not a destination.
Right.
It's about continually exploring, questioning, and creating your own meaning as you go.
Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into absurdism.
It's been fun.
I have to say, I started this episode feeling a bit intimidated by the whole concept.
I hear that.
But you've helped me to see it in a whole new light.
Good.
It's actually quite empowering, isn't it?
It is. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And remember, it's not about finding all the answers.
Right.
It's about embracing the questions and living a life that feels meaningful and authentic to you.
So to all our listeners out there,
Yep.
we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas, to read Camus.
Yeah.
Check out some of those absurdist plays and films we mentioned.
Uh-huh.
And most importantly, reflect on what the absurd might mean for your own life.
Absolutely.
Who knows? You might just find that embracing the absurd leads you to a deeper sense of meaning and purpose than you ever thought possible.
That would be great.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Keep those minds curious.
Always curious.
And we'll catch you on our next adventure into the world of ideas.